My name is Tokunbo Ibrahim. I currently lead government relations and public policy for TikTok across West Africa. I'm super excited to be having this interview with Just for Women Africa, and I look forward to the fruitful conversation that we'll have.
Can you walk us through your journey from Coca-Cola to Glovo and now to leading public policy at TikTok, West Africa?
So actually, my background is actually in law, and my career journey really started at the law firm of Udo Uduma and Bello Osage. Although my government relations and public policy journey started at Coca-Cola Hellenic, which is the bottling company for Coca-Cola. At Hellenic, I was part of the public affairs and communications team. And that experience really exposed me to the power of aligning business objectives with public interest, something that later became like a recurring theme in my career. From Hellenic, I joined Glovo, a fast-scaling tech company in the on-demand delivery space. I led government relations and public policy for Glovo across sub-Saharan Africa.
Before we continue, I want to give a quick shout out to People's Health Center Limited. They're based in Accra, Ghana, Ghana's finest healthcare center. They have a gym, PT spa, and a dance academy. You can reach them out on the number advertised on the banner.
That was Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, Cote d'Ivoire, and Uganda. That role was pivotal because it pushed me to think creatively, especially in emerging regulatory spaces where like policy is really still catching up with innovation. Today, currently, I lead government relations and public policy across West Africa for TikTok. My focus is really building trusted relationships with government stakeholders, anticipating regulatory trends, and helping to shape policy conversations around platform governance, content moderation, online safety, and really empowerment for the creator economy. I would say it's a role that allows me to sort of apply everything that I've learned every step of the way. So yeah, that's it for now.
What inspired you to pursue a career at the intersection of policy, business, and social impact?
It's a very interesting question. I think that what inspired me is the realization that the decisions made in policy rooms usually affects millions, especially in emerging trends. So it doesn't just affect like the company, it also affects the public, it also affects the consumers, it also affects so there is like a wide effect of policies that are developed. And I very early decided that I therefore wanted to be part of those policy conversations. So over time, I became drawn to roles where I could help bridge the gap between innovation and regulation. So basically, to ensure that a company can scale while they still uplift communities and remain accountable to the societies that they work in. So that was really the thing that really motivated me.
What does your day to day look like as head of government relations and public policy at TikTok, West Africa?
I don't think that there are any 2 days that look exactly alike. So I can't tell you what my day looks like because on any given day, I may be meeting with government officials or regulators to provide context on how TikTok operates or address some of their concerns or be participating in ongoing policy conversations, whether it's about online safety or content moderation or data governance or the digital economy. On other days, I may be developing strategies on how best to approach government relations in the West African region, or I may be managing a crisis. I may be dealing with internal teams and collaborating on a new project that we are working on, or giving advice on the best way to launch something in Nigeria. I may be providing updates to leadership team, to the global leadership team on new developments in the West African market. Uh, maybe monitoring regulations and trying to see what's new or what's upcoming on the horizon. So really, no 2 days are the same, but at the core, it's about helping TikTok be a responsible and trusted platform across West Africa and a respected voice in the broader digital policy conversations.
What are some of the most challenging regulatory issues you have had to navigate, and how did you approach them?
So there are quite a bit. I will talk about one because, well, it's concluded and it happened while I was at Glovo. So one of the more challenging regulatory issues I faced while I was at Glovo is the Korean Logistics Regulatory Department, which is the regulator for that space, had developed a new regulation, and the essence of that regulation was it was going to force e-commerce delivery platforms to change their business model, and it was going to introduce like major operational costs for them. So when I became aware of this regulation, I quickly rallied together other my counterparts in other platforms, right? And then scheduled a meeting with the regulator. We had various engagement sessions. I brought together key players for this joint engagement. And basically, through the persistent dialogue, through sharing data, constructive advocacy, and also helping the regulator to see the other side, the business perspective, we were able to achieve a redraft of the regulation, providing greater regulatory clarity for the sector, uh, obviously saving costs, but the companies could then maintain their business model without having to change it.
You have worked across multiple African countries. What are some key differences and similarities you have seen in how governments approach digital regulation?
I know many people see, or many foreign nationals or companies see Africa as like one, like it's one region, but actually there is a significant difference between the operations from Ghana to Nigeria to Cameroon to Cote d'Ivoire. Like, there are big differences, although there are similarities as well. I will say some of the similarities are a shared concern around misinformation, online safety, national security, particularly when it's around election cycles. I would say the growing interest in user privacy, data sovereignty. Uh, Also, I would say all the countries are beginning to recognize the economic potential of the digital economy.
By the way, if you're still watching this video, a shout out to Patholab Medical Laboratory based in Accra, Ghana. They're a true supporter of what we do here at Just for Women Africa.
In terms of differences, it's, I would say, the culture and politics of each region does impact how they approach engagements, for instance, or how they approach creating regulations. So in some regions, there are a lot of duplication of regulatory powers. There are a lot of regulators that sort of do similar or the same things. In some regions, regulations and law creation are led by independent agencies with clear mandates, where in other regions it's not so clear. Uh, so I will say, like, those are some key differences. Also, in even as small as the approach to stakeholder engagements, where like new laws are being drafted. Everyone says yes, they want to engage the stakeholders, but not all regions do that as well. And the approach as well to meeting, to courtesy visits, to engaging one-on-one outside of where there are issues. I think that is another difference between the regions as well.
How important is it to have African voices at the table when shaping tech policy globally?
So I think it's extremely important because again, local context is important, cultures, practices, what is popular in different countries, it differs. When we have African voices at the table, policies are more inclusive and relevant. So, an African voice will ensure that the policy that is being created is relevant to the African culture. It also means the types of harms or the types of things that are relevant in what in Africa are also considered. Just thinking about it from like an online safety perspective, and using an example of say Yahoo Boys. This is not something we have in the more developed countries, right? This is a more African thing. So, in the absence of African voices at the table, you will not be able to draft policies that sort of uh, consider these types of things. And African voices at the table would also mean greater opportunity for growth for the African economy, for the African sector, because we are also thinking about it from our own perspective, as opposed to from the perspective of like from the global or from the foreign perspective.
What's your take on the future of the digital economy in Africa, especially for young women?
So I will say that it's incredibly promising, but it's only promising if we address the barriers head on. There are quite a number of barriers to for women in business generally, right? I do see a lot more women showing up now as creators, as entrepreneurs, as innovators, but they still face persistent challenges. There's women have lower digital literacy, women have safety concerns, women are underrepresented in the boardroom in decision making, right? So we need to fix that. But the momentum is growing, and once we can fix that, I think we'll be able to unlock new jobs and businesses, and we'll also be able to uh, ensure inclusive growth and empowered communities.
Tell us more about the Safer Internet Summit for Sub-Saharan Africa. What inspired it, and what were the key takeaways?
So, I think what inspired the Safer Internet Summit is it was multiple things, but I think at the core, it was the fragmented conversations that were being had on the same topics, right? It was having conversations with multiple stakeholders in different regions, but about the same topic. So the idea was, why don't we bring everyone together into one room and have this conversation? It works from a TikTok perspective because we can talk to multiple stakeholders at the same time. But it also works from the regulator, from the government perspective, because they get to engage with their counterparts in different countries and get to understand how they are approaching different issues and also take learnings from them. So, one thing that we did see at the last Safer Internet Summit is that separate from the general meetings that were going on, we saw fragmented meetings between regions. So, the Francophone regulators or regions that attended had meetings between themselves. There were so basically, as opposed to separate conversations with regulators that also don't necessarily get the opportunity to learn from each other and to engage with each other, we now had a situation where it was one collective conversation. But in addition to that, I think one key takeaway from the summit, one continuous learning, is that online safety is not the sole responsibility of one stakeholder or one sector. The platforms cannot do it alone, but neither can the government, neither can civil society or the users of the platform. So we all have to collectively come together and ensure a safer internet for everyone in Africa.
You have helped co found regional industry association. Why is collective association so important in tech policy?
I think collective action is important generally, so not just in tech policy. It's important because many times the issues that you face as a company aren't faced by you alone. It's an industry wide issue. So, and there's strength in numbers. Speaking with a unified voice on a complex regulatory issue makes it easier for governments to engage meaningfully. So, it makes it easier for the government to see that this isn't just a global issue. This isn't just a Bolt issue. This isn't just a Coca-Cola issue or a 7-Up issue, right? It's something that is affecting all soft drink manufacturers, or it's something that is affecting all e-commerce platforms or all social media platforms. And then you can then get their attention. But you can also, the collective actions help to drive consistent and fair regulation. So reducing fragmentation, reducing uncertainty, you can collectively come up with a regulation, working with the regulator, that applies to everyone in an equitable way.
How do you balance the fast pace of innovation with the slow pace of policy and regulation?
So I think on that one, it's about approach. It's about approach in the sense that you have to go from being reactive to being proactive. Uh Policy is a marathon, innovation is a sprint. So you have to marry the sprint with the marathon by one, managing expectations of both internal and external stakeholders, right? So the company has to understand that the regulations, the laws aren't going to appear in 1 month or 2 months. And the regulator also has to understand that policy is required for investor trust. Policy is required for long-term investment, clarity of policy. So it's about marrying those two. It's about proactive engagement so that when as policy is being drafted, you have an idea of what that policy is, but you can also provide inputs into that policy.
What does meaningful public private partnership look like to you in today's digital landscape?
I would say it looks like one, trust. It also looks like creating solutions together and not just reacting to problems. A lot of things are reactive as opposed to proactive. So, meaningful PPP will be about creating solutions in a trustworthy environment. It's also about shared responsibility. So, letting each party know this is your responsibility, this is what we expect you to bring to the table, and each person honoring their responsibility. It's about accountability, and it's about really just working together for an inclusive future, whether this is in the digital space or not.
How do you stay grounded while working across so many high pressure, high stakes environments?
Um, I would say it's about always remembering the why. And in addition to remembering the why, understanding that there will always be something, right? Uh some people will say work never finishes, right? Some people will say with adulthood there's always something. It's sort of that way with work. So, while giving it your best and understanding and staying true to the why that you are doing the work, relying heavily on routine and community, it's also accepting that there will always be something, right? So don't put yourself under too much pressure to solve everything or have everything finished, because there will be something after that. Ultimately is about remembering that I'm not doing this alone. I do have When I say not doing this alone, I mean there's always room for cross-functional collaboration or external collaboration to achieve your objective. So go spend time thinking about the strategy on and how you want to achieve what you want to achieve. Then go at it, understanding that there will always be the next pressure. So don't let that overweigh or don't amplify that more than your why.